Hi, I'm Dr. Gemma, and welcome back to Cognitive, the Knitting Psychology podcast. Cheerfully and somewhat irregularly in business since 2008. Segments today may include what's on my hooks, needles, and spindles, a strategy, something I really like, put a lid on it, oh shoot, and blather. So sit back, put your feet up, pick up your knitting, crocheting, spinning, weaving, or dyeing, or any other yarny thing you're doing, and get ready to enjoy. Well, hello there, and welcome to episode 92 of Cognitive. I'm Gemma, your ever-loving host, and here we are, puttering right along on a Sunday night, August 21st, 2022. I can remember lying on my bed back in my childhood home somewhere between 1978 and 1982 and thinking that it was unthinkable that the year 2000 would ever occur. Yeah, if you wondered, it's what it feels like to be old when you have thoughts like that. Comments are welcomed. If you would like to comment on these podcasts, please feel free to comment on our group on Ravelry or on our blog at cognitivepodcast.blogspot.com. Oh, let's see what we have tonight. Well, in the warm thanks department, the Yarniacs. Thank you. I got a very nice invitation to join their group, which I did on Ravelry. But I really want to thank them because a few episodes back, they did this really boffo thread on knitting all the viral patterns. If you haven't seen it, I warmly suggest you go to Yarniacs on Ravelry and you look at their threads because it was a hoot. Everybody talking about the viral patterns that they remember. This is, of course, where I got the lane splitter skirt, which I will return to in a minute. Clapotee, I don't think anybody mentioned the clapotee, which I find astonishing, but it really shows you that there have been some big patterns since then as well. And no, it's not just all patterns that appeared in Knitty, but really go back and have a look at this thread. It's really fun. It's the Yarniacs group on Ravelry. I also want to tell you, DDC Knits, this one's for you, that I appreciated your comment about how you order out when you're going no sugar or very low sugar. And so we will hit that when we get down to put a lid on it. COVID, very quiet around here. I haven't looked up the statistics in quite a while. And, people in masks, people not in masks. We're having a really ugly late summer allergy season. I notice a lot of people are sneezing and red-eyed. So that's always confusing, isn't it? But at any rate, get the kids vaccinated, will you? Get your booster shots, will you? Come on, you know what happens. It's the trifecta of COVID doom. Memorial Day, July 4th, Labor Day. So rather than have another hideous wave, please get your shots, wear your masks, and all that. And the usual links are in the show notes. What is on my hooks and needles? Well, no finished, because I'm working on a bunch of projects that really excite me, that I'm really, really enjoying. First is the aforementioned lane splitter skirt. Yeah, I'm in love with it. I'm in love with it, and that's good, because you knit it on the bias, which means you're knitting a triangle at first that gradually expands, then you turn a corner and go straight. So you will see a picture of the bottom of my skirt and one short side, and the beginning of the top level of the skirt. The skirt is just a big rectangle that you seam. A few people have tried to make it circular, knitting in the round. I don't care. I'm really happy. It's one seam. It's not that horrible to do. And even the seam looks a bit sexy. It's a very sexy skirt. I have to tell you, as several people have said, man, who would look bad in this? I think mine is a little too long, but I did the skirt in these colors for that reason. I said, I like these colors. I'd like a brown skirt, an interesting brown skirt. And this comes across as kind of beige looking with hints of black and honey brown and silver. It's fascinating. It's a lot of fun to knit. And so I figured I'll make the first one and I'll figure out what I like and don't like. And then the second one, I believe I've got more Silk Garden. I've already learned I'll probably go down a needle size. I think my gauge is just a bit loose. Sure, I could measure it. Who does that? Also, though, I really want to see how this blocks because my gauge seems like it's right on. And so I'm thinking this is Noro. And Noro has a tendency to be kind of dried out when you get it and thin. And when you block it, it tends to bloom and swell up. So we'll see. But I am in love with this skirt. I even feel sexy knitting it. So I recommend it. And go look at the pictures on Ravelry. I mean, look up the pattern and then look at the finished object pictures. You won't believe how good this skirt looks. So I'm kind of loving it, which is a good thing because today my knitting attacked me. I don't get to say that very often, but man, I was watching a really lousy movie, and I'll get to that under the fluffy books. And I got really tense, and yeah, it was a purl row, and I knitted it. And then I went on 4 more rows and said, what have I done? And then realized, well, I did purl half of it. So I had to rip back. This thing is about 200 stitches right now per row. So ripping back 4 rows, that was no laughing matter. But I did. But my knitting attacked me. Go figure. I'm not this person who gets attacked by her knitting. And yet it happened. And there are more tragic knitting attack stories to follow. For example, you will see a picture of the first of the midsummer socks. I am now well past the waste yarn that I use for the afterthought heel and cranking up that first sock. And I love it. I really do. It's a yarn I only found once at, I believe, Stitches West. And if you want to know the yarn, you can go look in my show notes because I don't even remember what it is. It's pooling like crazy and it's beautiful. I really feel like it's like looking at the bottom of the ocean somewhere on the southern coast of France. Very, very pretty, but the yarn attacked me. Okay, this one was really my fault. This one, I had wound up a cake of the sock yarn, and like an idiot, I tried to use it as a center pull ball. Let me tell you, the thing you never do is wind fingering weight yarn into a center pull ball. It guarantees yarn barf. Oh yeah, this got ugly. But it's okay. I managed to work it all loose and unknot it one evening earlier in the week. And I separated it into 2 smaller balls. And now I'm quite happy with it, to be honest. It's much easier to manipulate in its current form. But man, 2 yarn attacks in 1 week. So that's the midsummer socks. Meanwhile, the don't know yet, I cruise onward making blocks. And I have to count blocks. I have no idea where I am on this thing. I'm pretty sure I'm not only caught up, I'm pretty sure I'm like 4 or 5 blocks ahead. But I need to sit down and count up because it's important. Now that I'm actually getting lower on the yarn, it's kind of important to me to figure out like what I have and what I still need. And also I want to figure out because I want to use the square of a number. So I'm thinking of a square panel for the finished blanket. Now, that might not be wise. I might want to make it a rectangle. I need to sit down and think about the measurements. But at this point, I'm thinking 19 by 19 blocks, 361, in other words. And I am concerned that that will, I don't know, be too long or too wide. To be honest, I have a queen-size bed, and most queen-size comforters are squares. So we'll see how that goes. But I need to sit down now and start looking at those logistics because 250 squares is September 4th. So I'm coming up on another milepost here. So I probably need to start thinking about this more. The pattern is looking like a sort of abstract sunrise in squares. We will see how it goes. Meanwhile, what else am I doing? I'm doing the Wrapped in Tiny Chains crocheted cardigan. As I've told you before, I finished the back last week. I really slowed down on this. I had an urge to do this, and then the back went on and on and on. This is another one that I'm really doing this big. I have a tendency to oversize my knits. I'm still knitting for the person I was before I got diabetes and lost all the weight, I think. So I need to get a little more daring and go down a few sizes. I don't care. It's a cardie. I just want a big fluffy cardie. This is a great pattern. I can't recommend it enough. I saw 2 people post their finished ones this week on my Instagram feed. I don't know why they're not all posting these on Ravelry, but I highly recommend the pattern, and I do have a link to the pattern in the show notes. A pattern that is listed on Ravelry. In the meantime, well, let's move on to a strategy. Well, tomorrow night, I start American Sign Language, and I was talking to a patient who's in his early 20s, and he was mystified. He said, "You still take classes?" And I was really startled. This is someone who has not settled on a career yet, and all I could think of was, "You don't?" And it really dawned on me that, yes, while we're talking about emotional management strategies, keep learning. No learning is wasted. And what's really nice, too, is I talk about this a lot with my patients about if you're jammed, if your career is at a halt, go online, look up free classes. There are millions of them. I recommend you go to Microsoft.com. They have Office, that is Microsoft Office's programs. They have trainings for free. Yeah, you can add a line to your resume that you're proficient in Excel, doing spreadsheets, or you're proficient in Word or PowerPoint or whatever. It is really stunning how easy these things are and how great it is that you can do that for like 10 hours and then add a line to your resume. I do keep a list on my curriculum vitae of the classes I've taken. I usually drop off anything that's more than 5 years old, but I am a huge believer in learning. But there's more. First of all, succeeding in a class online is a way to boost your confidence. If you feel like an imposter, or you feel like you have low self-esteem, or you feel like you're going nowhere, take a class. There are coding classes all over the web. There are computer things galore. But there are other classes too. You can go to YouTube, you can take yoga, you can take all sorts of stuff in all sorts of categories. While we're on the subject, you can go to the public library, you remember them, and you can check out all sorts of books on things. You can check out Knitting for Dummies, you can check out Coding for Dummies, you can check out ASL for Dummies. I really hate the fact that series calls themselves For Dummies because I don't really think they're stupid books. But I think they're trying to jokingly encourage us all. The point is, the public library is loaded with books you can use to teach yourself a new skill and to help yourself get going. So, the benefit there is this just improves self-esteem. It improves your resume. Even more than that, you don't know what you will get out of it. I say this with great feeling. My father, who was a very successful real estate and insurance broker, made my brother and I get our insurance licenses while we were in college. How I hated insurance. You know what? You want to talk about incredibly useful knowledge. I swore to myself I would be anything but an insurance agent. I'm here to tell you I have saved thousands of dollars because I know insurance. I know what to say when I make a claim. I know how to talk to people. My relatives, I have a huge number of car dealers among my relatives. It's true. Yep, learned from them too. I'm the one who buys the family cars. I pay attention at family gatherings when they would talk about how you buy a car or how they would sell cars. Nothing is wasted. But there's another great advantage if you're me, and that is as you age, learning becomes more valuable. It keeps your mind flexible. It seems to delay the aging of the brain. Learning languages as you age seems to ward off Alzheimer's and deterioration. So you have to stay open to learning. You have to keep doing new things. But why not? Why not? If you're older, the kids are out of the house, even if you're still working and you have the chance to travel and to go experience things, oh my gosh, I remember my father in his 40s studying Tuscan Italian. He was raised speaking a different dialect. He spoke Marchigian as a child, but Mussolini standardized Italian throughout Italy, and he picked the Tuscan dialect because it was the language of Dante. So my father went back and learned Tuscan. And then he started to travel, and it changed his life. He got very, very good at Tuscan, but he used to go back to his family's hometown. When he first got there, nobody could understand him because he was mixing Tuscan with Marcajan. However, the old people would come to my relative's house every night just to hear him talk because they hadn't heard anybody speaking Marcajan since before the Second World War. He said it got a little awkward because the relatives sat around and cried. Nonetheless, I really think learning language is a life-changing thing. And you can imagine my surprise because one of my patients said to me, "Oh, I'll bet you're a polyglot." And I was really mystified. I said, "Of course I am." And then realized, oh, they don't take that for granted. When I was growing up, you simply assumed any educated person spoke a second language or, a third or a ninth. I think, actually, though, I'm not very good on the languages anymore. I'm very, very rusty. But again, this has been incredibly useful to me. I went to Italy. I could barely speak Italian at the time. And I remember standing in a crowd at a tourist place and tourist information, everybody was trying to get information and bogging down the line and yelling. And everybody mostly was speaking English, although there was a smattering of French and German. I remember being way, way back, like 2 hours back in the line and screaming in Italian, "I only need a map." And it stopped traffic. The people at the front of the line, the people managing the line, yelled in Italian, "Who said that?" And I raised my hand and they took me straight to the front of the line. Never forget that in Italy, Italians are very gracious. They're not used to outsiders speaking their language unless they're Swiss. And they really, really react well to any effort to speak their language. When I was in Spain, very similar. They were very, very kind when I spoke Spanish. Germans, yes. French, not so much, but I had a catchphrase in French that always worked. Je suis un Américain stupide, which usually broke up any French person I said it to, and they would do anything they could for me. So you get a sense of humor, but no, knowledge is wasted. It's not wasted because you don't know when you're going to need it on your next job. It's not wasted because it's easy to get knowledge. We have so much of it floating around on the internet, and it's easy to improve your resume. It's easy to get skills you really need. Yes, I put myself through graduate school working at a copying place called Kinko's that no longer exists. Yes, to get the job, they said you needed Excel, yes, and Photoshop, yes. And Adobe, I think it might have been Acrobat, and there was one more, I can't remember. I just went into their store, sat down at their computers, looked it up on the internet, and taught myself. I got a job that way. Nothing is wasted. I'm using those skills to this day. But more important too, it's actually brain protecting to learn things. It's actually good for you. It keeps your sanity. It also keeps you in touch with the outside world as you age. Remember that discussion? So I'm very excited to learn ASL. Also, you'd be surprised the fringe benefits. For example, when I realized I was going to do sign, I started reading up on deaf culture. This really helped with an experience I had signing up for the class, that I ended up talking to a deaf person who challenged me in a way that is very much a part of the culture when they think a hearing person is just jerking them around. And I basically knew what to do and what to say. And I was very grateful for that. That was what led me to start learning more about deaf culture because, yeah, like any culture, they're a little suspicious because outsiders can jerk them around. So you have to learn to just manage that. They do get jerked around by hearing people. The most common one being, "Oh, I want to learn ASL someday." And, yeah, that and $5 gets you coffee at Starbucks. They will always say to you, "What has stopped you? Why don't you start tomorrow?" Yeah, that's right. You can learn it for free on the internet. I am not making this up. Okay, but there are other fringe benefits I didn't see coming. I found out from a deaf person that my screen was wrong, that I was using and had to use a portrait orientation on my tablets. And I began to realize as I looked at various bits of information about deaf studies that I had to have a landscape screen. So I had to go out and find a screen. I got to learn about screens. Believe it or not, I learned all sorts of things about how to attach my Apple products to a bigger screen and how to attach my PC and the different softwares, what does and doesn't work, and yes, how to use an independent camera, and yes, how to stop the camera on my laptop to use the camera attached to my big screen, and so on. So here I am doing all this tech stuff. It is amazing what you learn. When you set out to learn one topic, you get a lot of fringe stuff from doing it. So wish me luck as I go forward in my newest challenge of trying to learn American Sign Language formally in a class. And it's true. I was talking to a patient this week who is deaf, and we had an interpreter. And I, without thinking, I said the word hypnagogic. And she said, how do you spell that in ASL, which I recognized, and I just hand spelled it. I just finger spelled it without thinking. And the interpreter was struck dumb, but the patient laughed and said, you're going to have to write that down. It's complicated. And I said, I know my finger spelling isn't that clear. And they both said, no, it's actually pretty clear. It's just a very complicated word. It's from the Greek, obviously. So you never know. It even has helped the therapy that my deaf patients are really moved by the fact that I'm trying. And it is sometimes, I wouldn't recommend long words derived from the Greek that are technical terms. But yeah, there was at one point, I think I might have said this before a couple of weeks ago, she was describing a professor who was very intolerant of her. And I didn't realize I was on the big screen, and I spelled out the word jerk with my hands, and the patient went crazy laughing. And the interpreter went blank and said, what did you just say? And the patient had a hard time controlling herself enough to repeat it back to the interpreter. So every now and then, you get these little benefits out of what you learn. But really, a major life strategy to manage emotions, to manage the deeper emotions, like your sense of self, your sense of competence, and to improve your physical and mental state is to just dedicate yourself to learning new things. It's true, I tried to knit in my 20s and I couldn't. I tried to knit in my 30s. I was so bored. I said, why does anybody ever do this? I learned in my 40s, and it's been a life-changing experience, as this podcast could testify, and the podcast is only a faint part of the world I got when I taught myself new skills. When I finally realized I couldn't learn it by watching anybody else, I had to look at a book to learn knitting. I could not watch somebody's hands, not on a video, in slow motion, not now, not ever. I learned about how I learn. I learned how to knit. I've made a lot of friendships. You know where it's gone from there. So today's emotional management strategy is keep learning, keep challenging yourself, keep finding new things. And yeah, learning language is one of the best things you can do. By the way, having said that, one of the reasons I want to learn ASL is that it's not spoken, that it really folds my brain in a new direction to do a purely sign language, something that is seen, not heard. I would also like to point out, as one of my closest friends who's a dedicated Native American researcher and scholar pointed out, she works with the Lenni Lenape tribe from where we grew up in southeast Pennsylvania. Native Americans had sign language. They did recognize linguistic difference, and they did have a pretty standard bunch of signs. And I do believe there are dialects, and I don't know if it would qualify completely as a language, but they definitely had a common system of signs. This is not a new idea. Humans have always recognized the value of this. By the way, the oldest sign I know, shaking hands. I know at least in classical Roman culture, it was a way of demonstrating you had no weapon, that you were extending your hand to show that you meant no threat. We all know a little bit of sign. In the meantime, let's roll on to the fluffy books. I've got a lot here, actually. I am still listening to the Finishing School series by Gail Carriger. Gail Carriger puts out a newsletter called The Cherub. Why am I telling you this? Gail Carriger is incredibly generous with other writers. She has recently finished a book about writing female heroines, but I know other authors, and she will talk to you. If you write to her and ask for help, she actually will advise you. So I really want to point out that I'm a big Gail Carriger fan. see, it's car, the word car, followed by another R, Iger. Gail, Gail. Amazing woman. Okay, then I watched the Enola Holmes movie on Netflix. Yeah, no. And really a heartbreaking no. Because the Enola Holmes series is incredibly feminist in all the good ways. That, first of all, historically accurate, not so much. But that's not its point. She's trying very hard to be accurate. There are one or two places where I would say, no, I don't think that would work. Even so, it is up for debate. I could be wrong. However, first thing, the Enola Holmes series, terrific cast. Terrific cast. I happen to like, I think her name is Millie Bobby Brown. I happen to really like her in Stranger Things. She's Enola, perfect casting choice. Oh my goodness. Helena Bonham Carter as her mother, Fiona Shaw as the somewhat high-strung boarding school teacher. Henry Cavill is Sherlock Holmes. Just a really stellar cast. However, that's where it ends. Costumes very attractive. But the people writing the script did not understand the book. They just did not. And I found it annoying because early in the film, Enola, I'll try not to give spoilers, but Enola says, "Oh, I will hide out by stealing my older brother Sherlock's clothing. I'll disguise myself as a boy." Right there I said, a man wrote the screenplay, which he did. Yes, Jack, you did. And if you read the Enola Holmes novels, you will know why I knew right away that this idea of dressing like a boy comes up over and over in the Enola Holmes novels. It took a long time for me to recognize what that was about. Sadly, the scriptwriter did not recognize it. And of course, the other thing is her relationship with Sherlock. First of all, they bring in a dishy guy. No. Secondly, Sherlock in the books is not especially nice. She wants him to be nice. Enola keeps fantasizing that he's going to warm up, appreciate her, understand her. No. Takes a long time, and even then it's kind of guarded. And so what I don't like is they keep selling out to sexist models of this kind of story. And it just gets really annoying. The male companion in the story, in the novel, he's pretty helpless and gripless. He gets it right once or twice. In the telemovie, he saves her several times. Now, she saves him, but they have to make her adorable and clumsy. Yes, that's another way we disempower women in movies and television. No, nobody. No. So, if you want to watch a goofy little teen romance on Netflix, sure, Enola Holmes. But don't go looking for the books. There's all sorts of sexism involved that shouldn't be there. And what really annoys me is I'm pretty sure that the people working on this project got interested because they said, "Oh, it's so feminist." And then it went downhill from there. So, then I watched the 2005 movie cinematic version of Pride and Prejudice. Keira Knightley is doing our heroine, Lizzie Bennet. I'm not a Keira Knightley fan. Having said that, she does fine. Here's where it goes south. It's too short. So they have to abbreviate. Oh boy. They try some abbreviations that should not be done. For example, Mr. Wickham, the bad guy. Ooh, he gets about 5 minutes of screen time, if that much. He's almost not in the story. The Gardners, her aunt and uncle, who are really critical characters in the story, with a name like Gardner, they're going to be. It's a highly symbolic name. They make good things grow. Yeah, they get about 1.5, 2 minutes in the story. The actress doing Mrs. Gardner, pretty good, but again, a little too old for the role. Because in the books, Mrs. Gardner is not that much older than Lizzie Bennet. She's married and she has 4 children. It is important that she's not that much older. I don't know why every production casts her as like this 45 or 50-year-old woman. She really should not be. I really think she should be at most in her early to mid-30s. Okay. So, no. No, 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 no. And then they add dialogue to kind of update it. Now, this is, of course, what killed the recent production of Persuasion that just bought the farm, that's being rated as the worst ever made. That may be Netflix as well. Can't think who did Persuasion. But I saw the trailer and said, there is no way in hell I'm ever going to watch this, because it's not even close. That the things that Anne Elliot was saying, Anne Elliot would never say. The things Captain Wentworth was saying, not the chance of a snowball in hell. So, you can see where the writers of the Persuasion got this from this movie. The 2005 P&P was very famous for upgrading the dialogue to make it a little more understandable for modern audiences. They don't do a bad job, but I have to tell you, Jane Austen is a brilliant writer of dialogue. When you change her dialogue, you do lose major themes in a book that is highly economical. Every word counts towards the themes. So, no. And switching dialogue into other people's mouths, nope, that's character pollution. It doesn't work really well. Donald Sutherland is Mr. Bennet. The Bennets are interesting in this movie, and I think it's a director's choice. I think she's trying to be artistic and thematic. Too bad she doesn't trust Jane Austen to do that for herself. So the Bennets come across as pigs at a trough. And all the meal scenes really are made to reinforce it. That what they're doing, what the director seems to be doing, is reinforcing how low the Bennets are socially compared to Darcy. And the way that gets played off is the rich people are always played as being in this very sterile environment. And of course, when we get to Pemberley, Darcy's home, that changes. Darcy is not that way. The Bennet's home is always in dark colors. I can't imagine why. In a world that lives with candlelight, dark rooms would be kind of awful at night. No mirrors, nothing. And this is an age when they use mirrors and light paint for that reason, that they're trying to get light into their homes. Okay, but I can see the director or scriptwriter or somebody is trying to make a thematic statement. However, Lizzie is too poor. The Bennets would not have been as poor as they're portrayed in this film. Still, I enjoyed the film. I did. And I think all the actors do a good job. Now, the real standout great moments, two characters. One is Mr. Collins. Instead of being played as a bumbling idiot, which really he is, I'm afraid to say, instead, this casting director and director make him small and ineffectual and chattery. The scene where he tries to introduce himself to Darcy is really interesting. The actor who plays Darcy, who's totally forgettable, I might add, turns his back to the camera. I don't even think it's him. I think they hire an extremely tall guy to make Collins look extremely small. It's an interesting approach. I don't think it's right, but I enjoyed it. It was a refreshing difference than the usual oily or bloated or large and obnoxious Mr. Collins. So I kind of liked it, but I don't really think it was intended to be that way. But again, I enjoyed it. It was a nice change. It didn't kill anything. The Lady Catherine de Bourgh was superb. I think it's the best I've ever seen that done. It was the incomparable Judi Dench, and the director really made a point. In the book, it's from Lizzie's point of view, and she's at Lady Catherine's, who's far her social superior. And Lady Catherine keeps asking her impertinent questions in public. In this movie, those scenes are golden. That when they're at Lady Catherine's home, Lady Catherine intentionally sits Lizzie next to Darcy, who's her nephew, and also across from her other nephew, who she would not want to be attracted to this poor woman in her mind, this kind of lower class gentry woman. And then she asks the impertinent questions, and she's mean. She's just savage when she's asking the questions. It's really obvious that she's warning Darcy and Fitzwilliam away from Lizzie Bennet. When she comes to visit Lizzie at the end of the story, again, she's just hardcore mean. So the 2005 Pride and Prejudice kind of mixed review. I think I'm glad I saw it. Will I watch it again? The 1995 is so much better. Hey, look, Colin Firth, Mr. Darcy. And they add a lot to the 95 version, but they add it in a really interesting way, and it really fleshes out the characters. It is hard to get Darcy right. In the 2005 that I'm kind of lukewarm on, the Darcy is forgettable, and they make him really shy, and that's wrong. In the book, if you really pay attention, he is socially a stuffed shirt, and so he has believed all his life he doesn't have to talk to anybody except his family and close friends. And he finds out in the course of the book that he doesn't have social skills. He is shy when he's not around those people. But he doesn't actually think it's a problem. He just thinks those people are beneath him. And Lizzie reveals him to himself, where he realizes he actually is shy around people who are not in his inner circle, because he hasn't bothered to practice because of his pride. So I think it's a very fine point, but I think it's worth making because it's hard to get Darcy right in any performance. He always misses the mark. Colin Firth is as close as you're going to get, and he does a great job, and so does that director, but they have a lot of time in that production. Okay, so that's a good one. And then The Avengers: Infinity War. That is the single worst movie I've ever seen in my life. It has some plot twists. They can't save it. It's just a gore and technology fest. It's loud, it's blinding, it's confusing. Some of the directorial cuts are very badly made, so you're kind of going like, wait, who's this? Where are they? There's a lot of subplots. I normally wouldn't mind that. But the special effects are drowning out a lot of it and killing a lot of dialogue. And it's just a gore fest. I don't know how to say it. Look, I understand the concept of a straight line tragedy. For heaven's sake, I'm a Shakespeare scholar. You want a straight line tragedy? Othello, single best example I know. The Duchess of Malfi, curiously, I have all 17th century and late 16th century examples. And Hamlet. Okay, pretty straight line tragedy. King Lear, This isn't. It just misses the mark. That's what they want to do. It's just annoying. It's basically like watching one of their 6-episode series on Disney going terribly south, where some of the 6-episode series are interesting and valuable, and some of them are, well, we're going to explain how this character changed in this way. Seriously, I can't believe anybody went back for seconds if they saw this in a cinema. I think I would have been deafened and blinded. There are good moments. There's the occasional funny joke. They really try to lighten it up. It's just the worst movie I've ever seen. I feel like, okay, now I know how Iron Man got out in space. Yeah, whoopee-doopie. I know how Thor got his eye back. Okay. I mean, I'm glad I got those plot points. Endgame, yes, I know where they get the Endgame title from. Yes, I understand the Endgame ending a lot better and the setup for it a lot better, yes. And I thought Endgame was a completely likable movie, annoying and loud and overly tech in places, overly violent, overly gory. Still, I thought Endgame was okay. I kind of enjoyed it when I saw it on an airplane coming back from Sunnybank in, I think, 2019. But I have to tell you, Infinity War's, okay, if you wanted those plot points explained, that's great. I don't know if I really needed this to enjoy Endgame. So if you haven't seen Avengers: Infinity War, for all I care, you could give it a miss. Now then, having dissed Marvel and thereby the Disney franchise, She-Hulk on Disney+. Yeah, go watch it. It's good. It's really good. It is. I don't know how long it's 40 minutes or something of the best feminism I've seen in a long time. And again, this is Marvel. It's a 6-episode series, I'm assuming. I could probably tell you the plot right now because they do the same plot over and over in these things. However, they do use them as a platform to make really meaningful social commentary. And that first episode was worth it just for that. I don't want to give you spoilers. I really just went into ecstasy when the Hulk starts talking about DBT, what I practice. And if you're not watching this with a critical mindset, you would think, oh, well, see, DBT doesn't work. Oh, yes, it does. Oh, yes, it does. And it is very hilarious where She-Hulk says, like, oh, so, like, we're going to, I forget how she says, like, we're all going to get all spacey and metaphysical. And he says, it is a clinically validated, evidence-based therapy. Bless you, scriptwriter, bless you. Do you really want to know what goes wrong with her DBT? It's really very evident. The Hulk, by the way, is doing a good job. Bruce Banner's doing a good job with the whole DBT thing, except he gets caught up in mindfulness, which he clearly needs and has clearly benefited from, which is a very valid part of DBT. That's not what she needs. When we teach DBT, usually you start with mindfulness mixed with distress tolerance. If you asked me, I would say that Jennifer needs some distress tolerance skills. Okay, and that's one problem, that he's going at it. He's not paying attention to the patient. He's going at it from the wrong angle. However, I want to point out, in cognitive behavioral therapy in general, we always pay attention to the patient. We always ask the patient what they need, and we always grant the patient expert status on themselves. That's why his DBT fails with her. He's not giving her expert status. He's not asking her for her perspective, and he's not tailoring the teaching to her. He's not tailoring the skills to her. And she keeps trying to say something equivalent. He's really giving a kind of very nice anger management sort of DBT, and that's really great. And she keeps telling him, that's not my problem. I really, really like it. There's one or two moments I don't like. Marvel has a tendency to resort to violence to make up arguments. We're mad at each other, so we have a good fight, then we like each other. And they don't let you down. However, I really liked episode 1 of She-Hulk. I really enjoyed it. And if you're paying attention, I won't give a spoiler, the issue in the opening scene is really critical, line by line through the script. Wonderful economy of plot. In the very last event, you realize that if the attorney's opponent in the opening scene had their way, everybody would have died in the courtroom. It's really good. It's really good. It's such a metaphor for being an intelligent professional woman. I cannot tell you, I just sat there and thrummed in harmony. Like, yep, this is what it was like to be a college professor and a woman. Yep, this is what it was like to be a Stanford scholar and a woman. Yep, this is often what it's like to be a psychologist and a woman. Yo, Marvel, got it right. So, with all this dissing, I'm happy to say, go watch She-Hulk on Disney. Honest to God, I could have written that script, except I'm not that talented. Something I really like this week, well, it really would fall into the same as put a lid on it. And that is eating keto at restaurants. I want to point out that I am somebody who loves to eat out. And I can tell you exactly where it comes from in my life. When we were little kids, my mother cooked badly. I don't mean just a little bit. I mean, my mother could not cook to save her life. So the highlight of my life was when we went to McDonald's when I was 5 years old. Yeah, that's right. In my family of origin, McDonald's was the best cooking I ate. You can all feel sorry for me now. And so I learned to love eating out. And now I'm quite a good cook. My husband's quite a good cook. I still love eating out. So happily for me, when I was thinking about something I really like and put a lid on it, DDC Knits, bless you, asked me about what do you order at Starbucks, and was talking about her need to be low to no sugar. And I thought, that's true. I'm always singing the keto praises. But there's a huge percentage of us who, whether you're keto or not, you're diabetic or you have high sugar, pre-diabetic, whatever. So something I really like, believe it or not, is still eating out, but eating keto out or eating low or no sugar out. So what do I order at Starbucks? Well, let me give you guidelines. you're looking at two things. One is getting the sugars and carbs out and getting the high-fat stuff in. Those are the big guidelines, because if you're not eating carbs, you're going to be hungry. And there's this fantasy that you can use bulk foods to fill yourself up, and you can. Why is that a fantasy then? It doesn't last. You don't stay full very long. What keeps you full is saturated fat. So that's what we're looking at here, okay? And I know half of you are passing out, oh my God, no, not high fat, no, I'll have a heart attack now. Okay, I don't care. I don't care, just hear me out. Because you have to remember that fat fills you up, and it really does. And you're saying, no, not me really. That's because you eat carbs. Carbs create a craving for more carbs. So even when you're full, you're craving. It's when you stop that the fat's going to fill you up. Take it from someone who's been keto for 4.5 years. But don't bother. I'm going to tell you now how I order at Starbucks. I'm also going to tell you the fastest way that I know of to lose weight, and it is not the keto diet. It is about 3/4 of the keto diet. Okay? So you're thinking about get all the carb out, and you're thinking about get some saturated fat in. Okay. First thing, the sugar's going away. You're still going to want sweetener. Swerve is my favorite. It cooks and acts like sugar. You can get it at Walmart if you must, but you can get it a lot of places. You can order it online. It's really easy to get. Okay. But also monk fruit and stevia work just great. They're pretty much the same thing. They do not cook well, but in restaurants and Starbucks, monk fruit or stevia, Starbucks now calls it monk fruit. They used to call it stevia. They work just fine. You have to be careful because if you have too much, it gets bitter. 1 spoonful of monk fruit does not exchange equally with 1 spoonful of sugar. 1 spoonful of monk fruit is far sweeter. Yes, I'm talking about stevia here too. And if you have that much, it will be bitter. It goes from sweet into bitter. Don't do that. So if you're going to use those to sweeten coffee or tea, you have to get used to using a smaller amount, and you have to mess around with it. What am I really telling you? 2 things. 1, how do you lose weight fast? I lost 9 pounds a week by doing this and only this. No sugar, flour, rice, or potatoes. That's it. When I found out I was diabetic, I was so scared. I went home and I said, well, I'll have brown rice. I'll be able to have whole wheat flour. And I was so scared, I said, I'm not even going to do that. But I also said, I don't even like those things, really. So I went cold turkey on all of them. 9 pounds a week for 3 weeks. My doctor accused me of being anorexic because he said nobody can lose weight that fast. Let me tell you something. Your body wants to be healthy. If you do the right thing, your body will react right. My body loved it. My health improved so much in that 3 weeks that's kept me on track for 4.5 years. That's not full-blown keto, but it's close. What do you do to be keto? Well, you don't eat beans and you don't eat starchy vegetables, that is root vegetables, potatoes obviously, but carrots and beets. Pickled red beets were the hardest thing I gave up. I'm here to tell you I still love them to this day. And you're thinking, oh, as everybody says, I can't live without pasta. That's an important statement because when you do these things, you will come up against your beliefs about food. And believe me, next to your carb cravings, it's your beliefs that are limiting you. It's my beliefs that got me diabetes. I'm here to tell you. I found I couldn't live without pasta. Well, I have for 4.5 years, and I haven't even missed it. Why? What I did not know is when you stop having food cravings, when you stop eating carbohydrate, you don't miss anything. Food cravings come from hunger. If you're not hungry, you don't miss anything. That's just as simple as it gets, but it takes a while to reach it. And you're going to make mistakes. This is a process, okay? So first thing I want you to know, you can use the sugars for diabetes. No, nothing chemical, aspartame, Splenda, none of that stuff. Stevia, which is also called monk fruit, swerve, which is organic ingredients. Okay, and I've talked about that before. And you're going to need a base amount of saturated fat to fill yourself up. Because if you want to lose weight rapidly, you don't have to go keto, but you do want to just put a hold on sugar, flour, potatoes, and rice. Okay? Now that I've said that, how do I eat out? At Starbucks, black tea with monk fruit. I get, I always forget their sizes. Their second largest size, is it a grande? I could never remember. They have idiotic size names, as you can tell. But I get that. If that were using regular sugar, I would put, since it's the third from the bottom size, I'd probably put like close to 3 teaspoons of sugar in it. 2 monk fruit is all it takes for me. Other food, you can have some of their trays, their snack trays, as long as you toss the carbs. So they have one that has a hard-boiled egg and some cheese. I'll have that from time to time. They had another that's supposed to be their fruit and cheese, and that's only about the cheese. And I'm trying to remember if that's the one they put 2 celeries in. I can eat that. So I end up throwing a part of that out, but that actually is enough to fill me. The one with the hard-boiled egg, which I think they call their protein tray, that works great for me. Egg bites, not unless you're desperate. Those have starch. That's what gives them that fluffy shape. Egg bites are ridiculously easy to make at home in your Instant Pot. Keto recipes all over the net. Go to Pinterest. I'm not kidding. Okay, so I try not to eat at Starbucks. It's basically a black tea with monk fruit. Try it out and see what you like. Occasionally, I will have them put heavy cream in it. This confuses them, but it tastes really good. Over time, I've lost interest in that. But in the beginning, I had to have a lot of heavy cream because I was trying to get used to that world. And I needed more fats. I didn't know how to get fat or enough fat at that time. How do you eat anywhere else? Okay, the rule of thumb, appetizers, charcuterie, antipasto, salad, basically. And the dip of choice, blue cheese dressing. Now, if in a good restaurant they make their own blue cheese, you can too. Very easy. I use avocado-based mayonnaise, sour cream, full fat, heavy cream, heavy whipping cream, full fat, little bit of water, little bit of garlic, little bit of salt and pepper, dash of Worcestershire sauce, lot of blue cheese, as much as you like. I can't even remember where I got that one. I got it off the internet. I make it by the quart. I store it in my fridge. I use it on everything. It's a dip. It's a salad dressing. Again, hear all the fat in that? Doesn't take a lot, and it's going to satisfy you. You can use it with appetizers. You can dip celery in it. Now, you got to be careful with the crudité because no, you don't want to eat carrots. No, you don't want to eat radishes. However, you can mix that blue cheese in with just about anything to make just about anything. I do dip my jalapeno poppers and my chicken wings into my blue cheese. In a restaurant, you order the blue cheese dressing. A good restaurant makes its own. A bad restaurant, there is sugar in commercial blue cheese. Can you believe that? Who would put sugar in that? But yet they do. It's how they keep us addicted. The food industry is not your friend, no matter what they tell you. Okay, so the key is the appetizers, the charcuterie and the salad, using blue cheese dressing when you do that. Now, the appetizers in most restaurants, there will be the deep fried stuff, of course, potato skins, things like that. If you're looking at keto appetizers, chicken wings are good. Check to see if they're breaded. I won't eat them if they are. Who does that? Japanese restaurants do non-breaded chicken wings, in my experience. But always check to see. Always ask, are these breaded? Because breading is a no-no. There are forms of panko. You can grind up pork rind, that you buy as like a snack. You can grind that up and make great panko out of that as a breading if you're us, if you're keto. But nonetheless, you want to get a non-breaded appetizer. Celery sticks and dip are good. Cauliflower is good. Raw cauliflower, raw broccoli. These are all great blue cheese dressing. Again, in Japanese restaurants, sashimi And also a lot of stuff in a good Japanese restaurant. There's a lot of stuff in the appetizers mixed in with various gyoza and things with breading. In any restaurant, just about any restaurant, you can get a plain salad and load it up. You can ask them to add things. I always ask for bacon or extra bacon. And sorry, I'm thinking about my own home-cooked stuff because, frankly, it's better. Now, salads. This is great. Salads are your happy hunting ground. A chef's salad with blue cheese dressing is usually very keto. Don't let them put noodles on it or little crunchy things unless it's bacon. Now, there's two good ways to actually manage this even better. And that is, number one, go to regular small places that are family owned. Stay out of the big chains. And go a lot and get them to know you and tell them your dietary needs. They're really helpful. If you patronize them, they're going to do what you ask them to do. Also, I do this at Starbucks as well. If I get a drink and it tastes sweet, I don't care what they say, I hand it back. Oh, no, we're sure that's monk fruit. I just hand it back and I say, I'm diabetic and sugar could kill me. And you don't want me going into a sugar-induced coma in your store, do you? That gets their attention. So yeah, you have to get used to handing stuff back. If you go to a restaurant and they're using a soda machine, sometimes they confuse the tubing on the soda machine and you will get a regular Coke when you order a Diet Coke. Hand it back. I tend to stick to unsweetened iced tea in restaurants for that reason. But you got to get used to telling them, this could kill me. I'm not going to eat this. No matter what they say. And yes, I use that phrase. This could kill me. I'm on a limited diet. And you stare them straight in the eye and you dare them. Nobody so far has stood up to that. They just exchange the food with no comment. But when you go to a regular place, they get to know you. They get to know what you like and don't like. Our local Mexican, we walk in and they always say, Senora, the salad supreme, because they know me. You got it. And I have it with blue cheese dressing. Don't be afraid to carry your own. If you want, I carry stevia with me or I carry Swerve with me quite often when I travel. I have been known to carry blue cheese dressing with me in a good mason jar. Don't be afraid. But having a regular place where everybody knows you and knows your dietary issues, that's a great help. Another great help, use apps to order ahead. When we go to Blaze Pizza, we always get the keto crust. We order in advance. We know we're going to get what we ask for, assuming they still have it in supply when we get there. It hasn't already sold out for the day. We go to The Habit. We have tailored salads that my husband and I both eat. It works really beautifully. Starbucks, I order ahead. You have a much better chance of getting what you want when you order ahead. Chipotle, you got it. I order ahead on the apps. The apps are very handy. You can customize. You can special order. Also, I will tell you, if an app will let you tip, you should do it. And you should tip a little on the generous side because they're going to remember you when you do that. You want the people who wait on you to remember you and say, let's get this right. She's a good tipper. Well, in the blather, that really is the bulk of the podcast, guys, so we can go away. No. In the blather, though, there's not much because I've pretty much covered a lot of what I would say. Tomorrow, August 22nd, I begin my ASL classes, so I should have an exciting day tomorrow trying to sort out all the things I need to know to make that work. The pup date, Queenie and Captain and blankets, everybody's doing great. As I say in the notes, merrily we roll along. It is really nice. They're just all getting along and everybody's comfortable. So, it's good. Queenie goes back to the vet, I think, on September 8th for her next series of shots. So hopefully we'll get through that. It's a pain in the neck, but then we don't have to do anything till her rabies vax when she's 6 months, and then her neutering, which is really making me happy. And the beloved Hubs is doing really, really well. His eye is great. It looks very normal. He's just been terrific. He's kind of slowly getting past the traumatic aspect of having this happen to him. The guy has had very little trauma in life. Honest to God. Anyway, I'm really glad. He's been a star. As much as I joke about things like that, he's been an absolute star about this. The beloved son begins 10th grade, oy vey, on Tuesday. So we did the annual Let's Build You a Wardrobe for the fall, and we will refresh it with long pants at Christmas. I'm really thinking, too, I need to start knitting him sweaters. He likes sweaters, actually, but I just have to think in terms of something he can kind of destroy because he's ghastly with his clothing. On the calendar, Stitches, Southern California, November 11th through 13th. Be there or be unhugged by Dr. Gemma. What do you want me to say? I'm looking forward to it. I'm definitely going to be there Sunday. I'm debating if I want to try to be there earlier. It's that or take some time off at Christmas. You know, what a choice. The Grand Canyon is on the schedule for June 5th through 9th of 2023. Terrifyingly enough, so is Sunnybank. You should see the airfares. I'm a little concerned about that. And then, you remember Zarzuela, who used to be an indie dyer? Oh, I still follow her on Instagram. Holy Moses. She took her father and went from Vermont to Alaska. Holy Moses. I thought I had it bad the time I got stuck on the tarmac trying to get to Queenie. She was stuck 4 hours without air conditioning on the tarmac. Honestly, I'm a little scared about commuting to Sunnybank next year. We'll see. Can't be bad forever, right? Minerva gets the last word. There is a picture there. I'm sorry there's so much noise on the picture because I took it in the mirror and the mirror's kind of spotty. It is a picture of me and Minerva doing a psychotherapy consult. She is occasionally now returning to the study and being my therapy assistant. So we do have some animal-assisted therapy. Usually it sounds like this. Somewhere in the midst of talking to a patient, they suddenly start laughing and go, "Is that your cat on the chair?" Yes, it is. Now that I'm using the bigger screen, I use it often to see patients, and it's also made my therapy practice much nicer, which again, if I hadn't taken the ASL class, if I hadn't taken the ASL class, I wouldn't have the big screen, and there's just been so many benefits to the big screen. So, yes, there is a picture of Dr. Minerva consulting with me. I like this picture because it looks like I'm dictating into my iPhone and she's looking up at me thoughtfully. That's about it. In the meantime, it's been lovely talking to you again. You know all the rules, right, everybody? Yes, wash your hands, socially distance, get your boosters. If you're in a crowded place, wear your mask. Most of all, the whole point here, please stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye. So we have come to the end of another episode of Cognitive. Please do not use this podcast to diagnose yourself. If you think you are having a mental health problem, please contact a licensed mental health professional. Show notes for these episodes can be found at cognitivepodcast, all one word, .blogspot.com. Episodes can be found at iTunes under the name Cognitive Podcast, but also can be found posted next to the show notes on the Blogspot page. Thank you so much for listening. Everybody, stay safe, take care of each other, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye-bye.